to get so that we can give the best form of report for you people to know about climate change mitigation. In addition, the report has gone through significant number of reviewers. Two main sets of reviewers. One is the expert reviewers, and these are experts all over the world of the region of about 485, and also it has gone through 2 government reviews. So this gives us a clear idea of the scope of people that are involved in preparing this report. Now, this report, as you would see later on, has one aspect which was also highlighted by the chair, covering various sectors. But before we can look at the report proper, it is nice and important that we look at what has been happening in terms of the global greenhouse gases emissions to the atmosphere. It has been rising. And to take as an example in the view graph you see in front of you, it has risen by over 70% between 1970 and 2004, in which we claim or we have reliable data for. So this clearly shows that if we look at all the gases together, it has risen by about 70%, and of course that is worrying. Now if we take a more microscopic view of what I've just shown you, the 2 most important gases, or the most important gases to the total greenhouse gas emissions, is carbon dioxide. And if you look at the view graph on the bottom, you can see the carbon dioxide emissions from fossil fuel use, significantly from the power sector. You can see the graph, it is explanatory there for all of us to see, and the top part of the graph can show you that of CO2 decay and of course from deforestation. But you can clearly tell you the importance of carbon dioxide in this whole picture. Now, what is the report saying about the future? Because that is of the greatest importance to all of us. I've briefly mentioned what has passed, but 2 main important things are in the view graph for us to see. And that is, if we continue to do what we are doing now, we are in deep trouble. Now, as it's clearly stated there, with current climate change mitigation policies and related sustainable development practices, global GHG emissions will continue to grow over the next few decades. That is a major message for us to take home. The next one is the IPCC stress scenarios. These are baseline scenarios. These are scenarios that were developed within IPCC without explicit climate policies. Clearly shows that by the year 2030, the GHG emissions will increase between 25 to 90% relative to 2000 base levels. So this caused some thinking within the authors of this report to now look more deeply into the report, and for that to look more deeply into the report, I'll hand you over to my colleague Bart Smith to continue. I'll come in back later.
Against this background of rising emissions, the task of the authors was to find out what the potential is to reduce these emissions. And the key findings, and I will illustrate that with a few numbers, is that there is substantial economic potential for the mitigation. What we mean with mitigation is reduction of these emissions over the coming decades. And that potential is such that we could offset the projected growth, and in some scenarios could even reduce emissions below current levels. So that is sort of the bottom line of the assessment, that this projected growth can be compensated based on the economic potential of all the measures available. Now, in the table below, the authors have divided that up in different cost categories. There's so much you can do at low cost, and when your costs go higher, you can do more. And that's a fairly logical thing. The first row, where you see a carbon price of zero, which basically means things that even without a price of carbon would make sense, i.e. would create benefits, is already a substantial number, 5 to 7 gigatons, which cuts you somewhere between 7 and 14% below what otherwise would have happened. And when you go up in cost levels, and there were analysis was extended to the $100 per ton, you get a much higher numbers, of course. Next, please. One back. Another important message is this was the global picture. Now the report contains a lot of more detailed information. There were chapters for each of the major economic sectors that you see listed here, and the conclusion is that all sectors can contribute to that economic potential. And in this graph, you get an indication of the relative contribution that each of these sectors could make, again divided in 3 columns, 3 bars for the different cost categories, but now also indicating in what part of the world that potential can be found. And as you can see, all parts of the world, the OECD countries, the countries with economies in transition, and developed and non-OECD countries do have that potential to contribute to the mitigation. Can I go to the next, please? Of course, what in practice this means that specific measures have to be taken, and in most cases these are technological things. You do things that create such reductions, and the report has an exhaustive analysis of what are these key technologies that are available today, which you can get on the market. And this is just a brief and short selection to give you any flavor. It's in the energy sector, it's about efficiency, switching to other fuels, which could be nuclear, renewables, like hydropower, solar, wind, bioenergy, combined heat and power, but also CO2 capture and storage, at least on those installations where that, given the cost, makes sense today. In the transport sector, there's a lot to be gained from more efficient vehicles, both regular and hybrid. Biofuels is one technology, but also shifts from road transport to rail and public transport, cycling, walking, and designing the cities in such a way that you minimize the need for motorized transport. The building sector is one that really shows the highest potential for low-cost action by quite a range of technologies such as efficient lighting, efficient appliances in the home, air conditioning systems, insulation, solar heating and cooling, and also because this is not only about CO2, it's also about other greenhouse gases, the so-called fluorinated gases that are in refrigerators. And there are more climate-friendly alternatives available. Next. And I go briefly through the other sectors. In industry, it's about efficient electrical equipment, combined heat and power to make more efficient use of the available energy, recycling, and also control of a number of non-CO2